Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome to Our Issues Birmingham. Happy holidays as well. Everybody's happy, cheery, spending time with family, all the dysfunction that comes along with that. And we have invited Ann Regal, the Chief Executive Officer and Director of the Alabama Firehouse Shelter, also known as the Firehouse Ministries.
That's right.
So welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me.
God bless there being people like you that take on challenges like this to do what you do.
Well, it is an honor and a privilege because everyone deserves a home and everyone deserves a safe place to get the support they need to get back out into the community.
You know, as I was driving in this morning, I was thinking of asking this question, and so I'm going to ask it.
Please.
How, you see the homeless person on the street, and everybody kind of cringes and has a negative reaction. Not everybody, but some people do. Like, get out of my way, don't bother me. But how do people end up there? What have you learned? And what I have learned is some people choose to be there.
Right.
What's that dynamic psychologically?
Well, it's interesting because we tend to stereotype the homeless and we want to put them all in one little box. So everyone is homeless because of substance abuse, or everyone is homeless because they have mental health issues. But the truth is, the homeless are just people without anything in a bank account, or maybe not even a bank account at all. So they all get to be homeless for different reasons. And so they all have complex needs that culminate in them really needing a hand up from the community. So you're right. Occasionally some people choose to be homeless, but that's really, it's a perpetuating stereotype that isn't really what we see, because honestly, being homeless is really, really hard.
Oh, yeah.
People tend to think that you have a lot of freedom attached to it, but really there's not a whole lot of freedom at all. You don't get to choose what you eat or even have stability in what you sleep. Exactly. So it's very, you don't really have a whole lot of choices. And so the majority of people that we see at the Firehouse, so we serve about 3,000 people a year, men, women, and children, and 68% of those people have 3 or more disabling conditions. So that might be, like I mentioned, mental health issues, substance abuse issues, physical health issues. 10% are veterans. We have a lot of people coming from deep systemic poverty situations. And so when you have one of those things, that's hard enough to deal with. But when you have 3 of those things, it can almost seem impossible to help sort it out and fix those issues. So that's how people end up homeless. Some people, it's just one life event like a divorce or a medical health care crisis. But for the majority of people that we see, it's a lot of different issues.
And from a non-homeless citizen perspective, we need to diminish or work on the fear of the homeless, because I think that's the natural reaction of the person who's observing that homeless person. They're not empathetic to how they got there. They're afraid of them.
Right.
And I don't, part of what I'd like this show to do is to educate the public on that aspect of these people don't necessarily choose to be where they are.
Right.
And what you just said is supportive of that. Are you from here?
I am. I actually grew up in Mountain Brook, graduated from John Carroll High School.
Well, God bless John Carroll.
And then I left as soon as I graduated high school.
That's the opening line of the alma mater, just in case you don't know. I went there as well.
Oh, excellent.
Yes, before it was where it is now.
That's right. And so then after I graduated high school, I wanted to leave Alabama, so I moved to Vermont. Lived in Burlington for a long time, and then upstate New York. I worked at Fort Drum Military Base. But as a social worker, I felt compelled to go where the need was greatest. And to me, that's working in Alabama with poverty issues that perpetuate in the Deep South.
Did you go to school in Burlington?
I did, yes. I went to Burlington College and University of Vermont, but I ended up getting my master's degree from University of Alabama.
Yeah, I've been to Burlington.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, right there on Lake Champlain.
Yeah, I lived right by Lake Champlain.
And so when you say upstate New York, you went...
I went to I lived in Albany, and then I lived at Watertown. I worked, started my career working with victims of domestic violence on Fort Drum. At the time, we had a lot of people that were just coming back from war, newly married, and so there was a lot of issues to unpack and new marriages with people that were struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
how does Birmingham compare with other cities? I travel a good bit, and I go to the West Coast, and there are tent cities, cardboard cities of people.
absolutely.
We don't have that here that I'm aware of. I do see homeless, but I don't see the tent type dynamic going on.
Right. Well, of course, we have a much smaller population, which means, we're not going to have as many people, and it's not going to be as visible on. You're right. My brother lives in Seattle, and you can't walk down the street without running into someone that's tented on the sidewalk. But Birmingham is a little unique because we have homelessness, which is a smaller part. We have about 3,000 people that are street homeless in Birmingham. I feel like was the last statistic done in our point in time count, where we literally go out and actually count the amount of homeless. But we have a lot of people living in extreme poverty, which is just a step away from being homeless. So that kind of is what makes Birmingham different.
Well, hold that thought. I want to talk to you some more about that when we come back from break, okay? This is Our Issues Birmingham. I'm talking with Ann Regal with Firehouse Ministries. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. We're talking about specifically Birmingham's homeless population. I'm sure there's homeless populations in our viewing area, which includes a lot of smaller communities. Birmingham doesn't have a market on homeless people, I'm certain. 3,000 people. What's a day in the life of a homeless person like? So we see them at night, and we see them up under the bridges, or we see them in the alcoves of the downtown department stores, but what's a day in the life of a homeless person like?
Yeah, so that's really interesting, but I want to go back to what you said, where you said that in some of the smaller communities, homelessness might not be quite as much of an issue. Well, in fact, so Birmingham has a lot of services. We have our hospitals, and we have jobs and things like that, so people tend to gravitate toward an urban surrounding. We actually have lots of people that have come to us via some of the smaller towns around our area. And so their city of origin might be in your viewing area, but unfortunately they're unseen and they can't get the care that they need, so they end up in Birmingham. But you're absolutely right. Homelessness does not affect just the city center. It's everywhere. We get a lot of people even from what's considered the more affluent areas, the Homewood and Mountain Brook and Hoover and Trussville. We have people from all over.
And in the daytime?
Yes. So
where are the homeless people?
So that's a really good question, because shelters are really set up for the most part to be night services. So during the daytime, when people have to be out on the streets, you'll see them at places where they'll be safe and warm and secure, just like we all would if we were in that situation. So that's when you see people in libraries or in hospital waiting rooms or any place that they can sit down and catch their breath and not get arrested, because unfortunately with the revitalization of Birmingham, we tend to criminalize homelessness. So some of the things that naturally come with not being stably housed, people can get arrested for. So for the most part, during the daytime, people are just trying to stay out of public view so they don't end up in jail.
Yeah. That, is the Firehouse shelter closed during the day?
So we actually offer day programming for people that are participating in our services. So we focus on people in immediate crisis at our emergency shelter. So we serve about 120,000 meals a year. We have a clothing closet that runs 3 times a week. We hand out about 1,200 articles of clothing every single month.
And where do you get that from?
All donations. Yeah, the
And
Firehouse could not operate without the kindness and generosity of our community.
so if people are wanting to, what we call around my house as cleanse,
That's right.
or downsize, a good place to downsize to would be.
The Firehouse, yeah. So the cool thing about the Firehouse is because we're a local agency, if you donate something on Monday, chances are you might see it on someone on Tuesday. So when people lovingly donate items, we make sure it gets to the people in our community that are in need. So men's clothing, specifically seasonally appropriate gear, work clothes, black shoes, belts, hats, and underwear. Boxers, not brief. I'm sure that's the burning question on everyone's minds. The guys definitely prefer boxers. But, it's one of those things when you think about it. If you don't have access to laundromats, you wear things until you can't wear them anymore, and underwear is one of those things that it kind of has a short shelf life for not being able to be washed. So that's one of our most needed items at the shelter.
I know you work with Don Lupo. Don Lupo's been a guest on our show. As a matter of fact, Don Lupo put me in touch with you.
Yes.
And Don is quite visible.
That's right.
And you're not. You're in the back. You are now, but I'm glad he turned us on to you. So if individuals want to bring clothing, do they just bring it down to 3rd Avenue?
Yeah, just come right to our shelter. You can pull up out front, come and lock your doors, come inside and say you have a donation. Guys will come out and help bring it upstairs, and we'll put it in the clothing closet. Easy as that.
Mm-hmm. And do you offer healthcare services or any of things like that?
So when we were talking about the root causes of homelessness, one of the major factors is lack of health care. And so we have a on-site screening clinic with our partnership with UAB. It's actually one of the largest on-site multidisciplinary screening clinics in the entire country, where people that are street homeless can come and get screened, and then we provide referrals out to other agencies so they can get those medical needs met.
Do the homeless people reach out to you for these services, or do you have to seek them out?
Oh,
to
no.
come in.
The Firehouse is well known throughout the Southeast as it's a touchstone in our community as a place. Our Firehouse. And I'll tell you why that is.
Seems awfully tiny.
It is tiny, but the building is it's not as important as the services within. So people seek us out because they know we'll treat them with compassion and individualized care. And when you're not used to even having a name or being looked at in the eye, that's very important.
Do you work with other shelters in town?
Absolutely. I like to say we play well in the sandbox with others. So collaboration is our lifeblood. We certainly, like you said, our current building is tiny, so we couldn't do near the amount of stuff we do without working with other agencies effectively to get guys or people that are street homeless where they need to be.
Is it mostly guys?
Yes, so we accept anyone, but we are predominantly a men's shelter.
Okay, but in terms of that 3,000 homeless population.
Those are men, women, and children. Mostly the women and the children come through with our street outreach services and our meal services.
But you work with First Light, for example?
We love First Light.
And Brother Brian?
Yeah, so a lot of agencies in town do help the homeless, and they help them in really special capacities and ways, specifically around substance abuse and recovery. So places like Jimmy Hill or Brother Bryant that really focus on substance abuse, those are great referrals to make.
Well, hold on. We're going to talk about what's coming in the future.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back, okay?
Thank
Don't
you.
leave me. Don't go away. This is Our Issues Birmingham. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. We're talking about Birmingham's homeless, and not just Birmingham, but Birmingham proper, I would say the greater Jefferson County area, and what the Birmingham Firehouse shelter has to offer. I know in my line of work, sometimes people are required to do community service, and often we recommend the Firehouse shelter as a place for them to go and do community service. You were talking about First Light, there's Shepherd's Fold. There's a number of other facilities out there, but of course the Firehouse shelter, with its uniqueness because of that structure, that wearing structure that's beginning to crumble.
That's right.
I can't even imagine what the inside. I have been there because I do make contributions with food and things on occasion. Yeah. What's the plan for the future for your homeless?
Our future is so bright. And the thing that sets the Firehouse apart is we're a low demand shelter. So no matter what else is going on, you can come in if you're homeless. And unfortunately, the need is so great. So about
Do you have to turn people away?
Every single night. Yeah, just
Where
because
do they
of
go?
space.
Back to the street?
So we do a lottery, and that basically means we have a deck of playing cards, and if you draw a red card, you get to spend the night, and if you draw a black card, you have to sleep out on the street because we have such limited capacity.
So you have 26 spaces?
No, we actually have 50.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
so
you know, a deck of cards is 52.
Yes, so we have reserved beds, and then for the extra, so you have your reserved spaces for guys that are working with their case management.
But does the population change?
Absolutely.
Daily?
Yeah, we have a transient population. Of course, there's some people that come in. It can be a little cyclic, but if you've been homeless for 30 years, it's going to take more than a few days to pull yourself out. And so there's no length of time cap on how long you can stay at this shelter. But the most important thing of what we do is actually our housing. So everyone knows this is an emergency shelter, but in reality, we have about 200 housing beds spread all throughout Birmingham. So the homeless shelter is just a springboard to wholeness and to permanent housing.
And
but it's just not enough.
Transportation services
That's
to those
right.
places?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we really try to break down those barriers to get people back out into their community where they need to be. But the need is so great. We're actually the only homeless men's shelter downtown, and we have to have more space. Like you said, our building is old. It's not what it needs to be.
So where's you building a new building?
We are, yeah. We just completed a $6 million capital campaign. The new building is located at 626 2nd Avenue North. So it's about 7 blocks west of our current location. And the
One block north.
Yeah, so you get on 2nd and head west, and it's amazing.
Is it an already existing structure?
No, we did a design build process with Dunn and Poole Architects, and so it is a building meant to house the homeless. From every plug is purposeful, and the structure is really meant to help the subpopulation of homeless. So we'll have specialized housing for our youth, ages 18 to 24. We served 200 kids last year in that age range. We'll have respite housing. So those are for people that are dumped out of the hospital that maybe need to still be on bed rest. We'll have family housing. So of course we collaborate heavily with places like First Light, but they're all full too. So if a family presents, we wanted to have a safe place to put them. So the new shelter will really be able to meet the needs of our community, and we're so excited. It should open in January
of
2020. Yeah, it's almost built now.
In 2 weeks.
January. Yes, 2020, 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yes.
So we can go by and take a look at it if
Absolutely.
we want to.
I would love if you came by, or anyone that's watching this show came by, because it's a pretty fantastic thing that our community has done, and we were only able to build it because the community supports us, which is what we need. The Firehouse is reliant on the community. We're not a United Way agency. It's a community organization that desperately needs continued support as we house even more people.
So if someone in our listening audience, viewing audience, I'm not on radio, I have to remember that
That's right.
sometime. Wants to contribute. Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, the easiest way is to go online to our website. It's firehouseshelter.com. You can learn all about our organization, the amazing things that we're doing, and make a donation right online. Or you can come by our shelter. We love to have visitors. We're a total open book. That's one of the things that makes us special. So if you're interested in how to help the homeless, come on by and visit us at our new location.
And do you, most of the money you collect, I assume, goes back into the pot to provide for the homeless and not administrative costs?
93 cents out of every dollar goes directly to supportive services. Yeah, I always say if you're going to
that's a big
donate,
beef amongst some charities.
that's right. If you're going to donate, do your research, look at the 990s, make sure that your money is going to help the people it says it is, and absolutely check out ours. 93 cents out of every dollar. Make your dollar work.
That's unheard of, really.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I mean, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
relatively speaking.
I think it's pretty good.
Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you for
taking the
having me.
time to come share your story with us. And people like you are special in our community, and I know there are a number of other. How many folks work there with you?
28.
28 employees,
right.
And thank you to them as well. And thank you folks out there for doing what you can to help the homeless, and take her up on her offer. Go to that webpage and just come off a little bit of money. Every little bit helps. This is Our Issues Birmingham. Have a happy holiday, and we'll see you next week.